and welcome back to the All About PA podcast, where we talk about anything and everything Pennsylvania. I'm Chandler.
And I'm Reinys, and this is All About PA.
And now we're going to kick things off today with our first segment, One in 2560, a time where we introduce one of the many special towns you've probably never heard of here in PA. So I'm going to start with introducing Charleroi. Charleroi has this beautiful historic district. There's tons of churches. They have a lot of escape rooms and bowling alleys. It reminds me a lot of my hometown of Ephrata. Just sounds like a really nice small town to visit. It's right along the Monongahela River, and it offers plenty of opportunities for fishing, boating, picnicking. The scenic riverfront is an ideal spot for a leisurely afternoon, whether you're fishing, casting a line, or just taking in all of the natural beauty. Charleroi has a really big immigration population, and it's actually helped the community kind of bounce back. It had a lot of industrial jobs that were unfortunately lost, but with the recent growth of the immigration population, the population has been returning to levels not seen since like the 70s. And all the new arrivals are just helping with new businesses, newly refurbished houses. And it's just really, really nice to see a small town bouncing back like that, because small towns like these are the backbone of Pennsylvania, and immigrants are the backbone of the backbone,
Agreed on that.
Yeah.
There's definitely so many towns of Pennsylvania who have similar histories.
Exactly. And, the communities are always just so rich when there's such a vibrant immigration population. It really does it gives the areas just so much flavor, so much culture. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. One resident, Leanna Spada, the executive director of the Mon Valley Regional Chamber of Commerce in Charleroi, said that the new immigration population has fixed up so many buildings in the town and filled so many storefronts compared to where they used to be. And, in the face of all of these federal ICE raids, it's always important to remember that, immigrants are our neighbors. And, I was always taught to love my neighbor as myself, and I'm sure many others were too. So it is really nice to see a community like Charleroi embracing their new immigrant neighbors. It's just really inspiring.
Agree on that. There's just so many towns that have so much color because of the immigrant communities there that have brought more attraction to these towns in overall. I know that another town that has been recently coming up with headlines is Norristown, PA, known for its Oakwood Park Zoo, where I remember going there like a few summers ago, and I had the best experience ever. There were so many people that were so kind in the area as well. It's probably known for feeding the giraffe. Have you seen that? You get to go and you get to feed the giraffe lettuce, and you get to take a picture with it. I believe it made headlines for the giraffe having a baby. And
the
baby, I forget the giraffe's name, to be honest, but it was just such a beautiful experience seeing the giraffe, being able to feed a giraffe. Like, I've never thought I would do that. So I think that that's one of those things that stood out to me. And when I read this headline, I was shocked because, a lot of like the communities there are in fear, because you never know when, these things will happen. What if you're in the middle of, going to the zoo with your family, and suddenly, these raids happen unforeseen, and, why would you? That's such a traumatic experience. So even though, learning more about the Norristown history, it's known for a large Latino population. And it became the lead of the entire town's population around the 2000s. The people were migrating and kind of like brought back life to the town once It was known to like have decrease in population and jobs and stuff like that. So it was just, that's just, again, like one of the things that you hear about these towns that have been revived in Pennsylvania because of the immigration, of just like everyone from different backgrounds and cultures to add to that town and kind of like bring that color and life back into it. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things that just like make you think, like you said, our neighbors, we have to be kind to one another. We have to love our neighbors as we want to love ourselves, which leads us to our Meet a Neighbor part of our podcast, where we introduce and highlight neighbors and things that you can do to meet a neighbor in Pennsylvania. And one of those things would be possible through the Mobilize Network. They are currently in charge of making it easier for organizations and communities to get together. It is a people-powered movement. They provide user-friendly technology needed to create and schedule events. So if you want to meet your neighbor, if you want to get outside, if you want to participate, I definitely advise for you to take a look at Mobilize Network and see how the community in Pennsylvania are gathering together to learn more about each other, to support each other, how they can. They've been around for a while, and they're very popular. They're actually housing over 5.5 million strong supporters since 2017. Yeah, it's a thing. They've probably been responsible for many. I know that they've been noted for being responsible for many of the events that have led to a lot of movements in Pennsylvania. So if you want to learn more about your neighbor, definitely take a look at Mobilize.
Yeah, Mobilize is great. I mean, like, I have met so many people back in my hometown of Lancaster, like through Mobilize, through doing stuff through it. Like last year in the fall, there was a pumpkin carving contest at a local organization.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really nice. So it's such a great way to like get to meet people who are also passionate about, your community, bettering the community, extending a helping hand to neighbors. There's like fun events, and just like it really is such a fulfilling way to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no better feeling than like getting involved in the area and just getting to know people and helping people's lives.
And the
I think
food?
Oh,
What?
yeah.
You get to taste all different types of cultures' food, and I know that you learn a lot more through food. I know that for a fact, because you're gonna remember how delicious it tastes, how different it tastes from what you're used to eating, and that kind of like triggers these amazing moments and just interactions. I'm a foodie, so.
No, I wouldn't call myself a foodie, but I love some good food. And a lot of the community events that I've like been to in Lancaster, there's always fantastic food, especially in areas around the city. And it's also nice because, you get to meet people who are already involved in the community. You get to meet your local elected officials sometimes, people who are involved in the decision-making process in your local areas about some of the most minute stuff that like you might not even think of, like local taxes, school issues, stuff like that. So it's just a great way to get out, to meet people, and just have some really great experiences. Yeah
You get to learn about the small businesses too, like how they kind of make a living, and how their history. And I feel like PA just puts people on the map. And I feel like just going out there to learn about these businesses is like the best way to get started on just learning what's out there, stepping outside of your comfort zone, trying new foods. Becoming a foodie.
One of my favorite events I've went to was like an ice cream social, which isn't
Whoa.
any groundbreaking new food or anything, but still a classic. But it was an ice cream social, and I got to meet like local candidates who were like running for office in my area, and I got to talk to them about concerns I had with the town and whatnot, and it was
I
just
love
awesome.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I got to really feel the passion that they had for the town and the area, and it was just at that level, it's really nice to just be able to have a conversation with
Mm-hmm.
local candidates like that, because the further up you
Mm.
go, it's a lot harder to do that so casually.
Yeah.
But that memory has always really really stuck with me.
More of that. I want to see more of that actually. That sounds really cool. I mean, it doesn't have to be an ice cream social. It could be a social with anything. But I feel like if our communities know that people that make decisions that affect them will be outside and you can meet them and have these conversations and express your concerns, I feel like we'll have more people willing to like be part of this whole process, even as simple as wanting to register to vote because of the conversation that they had with a running candidate.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been to another event, a local chili cook-off, which was really cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually participated myself.
Wait, so you were cooking the chili?
Yeah, yeah.
Stop.
I it
That's
was
awesome.
it was really fun. The thing is, the recipe was just like, I just Googled it. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Hey,
I
you
don't
gotta
have
do what you
any
gotta do.
I don't have any
Can't
like
knock it.
his like family long held recipe or anything like that. I Googled it. First time making chili, but it was really awesome. And again, there were like local officials there, and like people from my neighborhood were there, whatnot. I didn't win the chili cook off, which was okay. I wasn't expecting to, but it. There were so many people who came just because they like heard about the chili, and then they were
Mm,
like, "Oh, like I didn't know that we had any candidates for like school board or like borough council this year. Like
look at
I
that.
barely even knew that there was an election this year."
Right.
So it was just like seeing those interactions, seeing people get to know each other over stuff like chili or ice cream. It's
Mm.
just it is really really fulfilling.
Yeah, we need to bring that back. Hey, Mobilize, if you're listening to this podcast, please
More
reach
more
out.
chili cook-offs.
Yeah, more chili cook-offs, more just community gatherings for local officials to introduce themselves to the constituents so that we can talk to you, so that you can know who we are, so we know who you are, so we can go out to the polls and vote. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Now I'm curious. You need to make that chili. I want to try it.
I could send you the recipe. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was not hard at all. For my first time ever like cooking chili, it like turned out surprisingly well. I can't lie. All right, so we'll move into our next segment, What in the PA. This is the part of the show where we talk about some of the headlines and various other stuff that caught our attention this week. So one of the first headlines I saw that I was really really happy to see was our governor, Josh Shapiro, is suing the federal government for funds for school lunches and food banks and programs for farmers that were stolen from us from the Trump administration. There were a lot of cuts to USDA and food aid programs. And thankfully, Shapiro is suing to get those back. You
As he
know,
should.
yeah. I mean,
Clock
I
it.
didn't think we'd ever be in a position where we would have to be like, actually, can we have money to feed
The
children?
right?
To
It's
feed,
bizarre. It's
yeah,
bizarre.
yeah. It's cruel. You know, the guy Shapiro was like, he said, I don't get what the hell their priorities are if not feeding people and taking care of our farmers. And that's so true. Like, what are they doing? Like, what are their priorities? I didn't, you know, giving to the poor, feeding the hungry. Those are all things that like feel so instinctive to me
Hmm.
that like it's just crazy that anyone would be like, actually, I don't think we should feed the hungry. Like,
Right. How even that, like saying it out loud, it just sounds so like how are you getting away with this? Like how is this the norm? And how are people so desensitized that this doesn't impact you on a like a personal level? With
yeah,
so much happening around, do you really think you're above that? Like that's insane.
exactly. And it's like people, the Trump administration feels emboldened to kind of get away with stuff like this because, every single Republican who represents Pennsylvania in Congress has, stood in lockstep with this. They've stood in lockstep with stealing back funds for food
Shame.
banks, programs like that, and
Yeah.
it really is just like shameful because, like,
Hmm.
I've been blessed enough in my life to never have to have resort to a food bank.
I
But not
did.
yeah, not everyone is. And it's like, the attitude that like, well, if it doesn't affect me personally, I don't care is just that's
That's not Pennsylvanian at all. That's not Pennsylvanian at all. I remember when I was a younger girl, I used to do a lot of food drives with my church,
mhm.
and I used to go to these food banks to either help or to get food. Because regardless where you are in life, you never know what's going to happen where you feel like, whoa, I came up short. I'm not able to afford this. And there shouldn't be any stigma on shame with that, or stigma of saying, oh, well, that's not real. That's not happening. People aren't claiming that they need groceries. People aren't claiming that they need support financially. And it's like, touch grass. Like, you're so disconnected from what's actually happening in your communities. Like, that's terrible. It's not Pennsylvanian at all. At all. And also, to piggyback on that good news, finally, the PA House passes the bill to raise minimum wage again. And
Again.
again. And we've previously talked about this because I'm very passionate about the issue myself, because it's just been a long time coming. And the House Majority Leader Rep Jesse Topper told Pennsylvania Live that he opposes the bill because the market forces should be the sole determinant of wages. ... So we have something good, and then the minority leader, Representative Jesse Topper, says
Yeah.
this. How, like,
Something's not adding up because like, if market forces really, if the market, the economy set wages, wouldn't we have better wages in Pennsylvania by now?
wouldn't we?
Like,
Man, I've just been we've been waiting so long for this to happen, and then we have like these bumps that just keep coming back, and then I revert to my conversation. Touch grass. Like, where are you that you're not understanding that people are struggling amidst
yeah.
everything that's happening around us?
And, with inflation, it's like minimum wage should be like way higher, and yet it's still $7. I remember back when I was in school and I got a job in Washington, D.C., where I was going to school at the time, and I was immediately making $15 an hour, which was the most I had ever been making at that point compared to anything when I was working in PA. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was still working here in PA, and he was like, "Oh, dude, I just got a raise at work. I'm so happy now. I'm making $11 an hour." And I was
Dude.
like, "Man."
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
I was happy for him, of course, but I was
Right.
like, "Dude, like we have it so tough." Like,
SOS.
yeah, and he was a fantastic worker.
Yeah.
The best at his job, and yet I just started as a trainee and was making 15, and it's like, it's like we have to do something to make people want to work in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. We don't want to, we don't want our college kids being like, well, if I go to college somewhere else and get a job, I'll be making way
Yeah.
more.
Exactly. Therefore, our young graduates leaving the state for better opportunities is shameful.
Yeah.
And just the fact that the minimum wage like legislation has been passed over and over again, and suddenly when they go to the Senate, that's where they go to die, because they just all conversation about it, everything just gets like lost, and we hear nothing again, and then we have to go back and reintroduce it again, and it's like, how many times are we going to do the same thing?
Yeah.
Why are they always trying to stop this progress? The states around Pennsylvania have all been there already. Chandler, you said this. It's a shame. The 50 minimum wage bump is just like barely what we should be getting.
It should have been
compared to the
15
states around us.
like 10 years ago. And, it's not just even minimum wage, but it's like, it's legal recreational weed, ban on gifts to elected officials, sexual abuse survivors bill of rights, all of these like good common sense bills just die in the Senate because Senate Republicans just, I don't know.
What is
they
that?
hate us or something. I don't know.
Right, like what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, I feel like they campaign on a lot of false promises, and then once they're there, it's like, oh well, you don't understand the way it works. It's so difficult here to like actually do our jobs and push forward legislation. It's so difficult. And then they kind of like build this wall where it's like, oh yeah, well, it's just, everyday people don't understand. I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. We're not stupid. We can see what's going on there.
We can see what's not happening, and that's that minimum wage legislation getting passed and moving forward. That's what's happening. So you can't beat around the bush with that.
Absolutely. There was another story I saw about the protest out in LA and how Trump was sending out the military to meet with them. Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman called the LA protest anarchy, which, I think is a little unfair. To me, the real anarchy is, military troops, raining down on protesters exercising their constitutional rights. The real anarchy is the Trump administration taking over the National Guard from, California's authority and using them as pawns in their game. That to me is the real concern, the real anarchy there. As Americans, we have these rights to free speech, to protest. They're foundational to who we are, and that kind of response from the Trump administration is just it's ridiculous.
Fear.
Yeah,
Fear.
It is scary.
It's using all of the resources that are set in place to protect us, to protect working people, to protect families, students. It's using that against the people and making it seem like they're the dangerous ones, like our victims are the dangerous ones, is bizarre. It is almost like I'm in an episode of a horror film, or like that dream where you're like yelling at the top of your lungs and no one can hear you. It's almost just like that, because you're hearing this and you're watching this and you're reading this in the news on headlines, and you're just like, is this really happening? Like, am I even real? Like, am I sleeping right now? Can someone pinch me?
Yeah.
It seems so bizarre and just detrimental, heartbreaking. I try my best not to look at these videos without getting emotional and just, feeling like, okay, I'm just gonna focus and, do something to like help, just help and move through this terrible situation and participate, donate my time, volunteer, learn more. How can I help? Because this is very real for people.
And we can't give up the fight. We always got to keep moving forward one step in front of the other. I mean, thankfully, though, here in Pennsylvania, we have some really great organizations.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know,
Yes.
you have some great resources for Pennsylvanians here.
Yeah, we do. We have organizations that on a daily basis are researching and providing resources for our communities to seek the help that they need, seek the information that could be beneficial. Organization like Casa for All, Make the Road PA Action, SEIU. SEIU is literally everywhere in the United States. So they have all been the driving force when it comes to fighting for immigration rights, providing immigrant resources, providing information to educate everyone so that we can protect our communities, our neighbors that are immigrants. This goes to show that, when these moments of chaos happen, you know, they're they're trying to pin people against each other again, trying to make the innocent be the villain, portray them in that way to scare people, to divide us. But honestly, I'm very proud to say that that is not working. That what's happening instead is that communities are coming together to protect different types of immigrants in the community that they all make up. And it's just beautiful to see that no matter what, even if Fetterman calls it an anarchy, communities are not listening to that. They know what's really happening. They know who the real, villains are. And they know what they have to do to protect them. And, I feel like with all of this happening, I think that having those resources in those organizations is just so helpful so that people get educated and fast. Like they're super fast. Like this is what we got. We've been prepared for this. We've seen it coming. Recently, the headlines for welcoming cities also were cities were making headlines for becoming welcoming cities. There's a total of 7 welcoming cities in Pennsylvania, including Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Erie, Lancaster, State College, Allegheny County Borough of Dormont, and Allegheny County. Allentown, Pennsylvania just recently became a welcoming city, essentially highlighting that they will not be cooperating with ICE and that they will stand strong and protect their immigration community, the immigrant community. And, they've also mentioned that other cities around the Lehigh Valley have made efforts to making movements to pass that similar legislation. So again, the attacks on immigration, these detrimental videos that we've been seeing online, it just shows that our community is willing to step up and protect immigrants and, not allow any of that to happen. But it's just, you feel like you're in a bad dream.
Yeah, it is really tough, for sure. I mean, but as long as we, continue to step up and fight for our neighbors, we do the most that we can,
Agreed.
On a bit of a lighter note, we're going to end off with our Pennsylvania news quiz for the week. We'll do about a few questions. So we'll get that up.
I wonder what's in this week's.
It's been a busy week.
Yeah. I wonder what they're going to include this time.
So the first question is, which major tech company plans to send $20 billion on 2 data centers in Luzerne and Bucks counties? The answers are A, Amazon, B, Microsoft, C, Meta, or D, IBM.
Wait, I think I read about this.
I read about this too.
Yeah, I think it's C.
I think it's A.
Amazon? Was it Amazon? I thought it was Meta. They were doing a lot of expanding and sus stuff.
Let's find out. It was Amazon.
Correct. Yes. You know what? That's the headline.
The largest ever private sector investment in the state's history. Interesting.
I wonder what that's going to mean.
The next question. Dozens of Democrats in Congress are boycotting which Philadelphia restaurateurs' restaurants? Interesting. A. Michael Solomonov. B. Steven Starr. C. Michael Scholson. Or D. Steve Cook. I have no idea.
I'm just gonna go with Steve Cook because Cook.
Cook? I was thinking the same thing.
I know, it's word association, I guess.
It's
No.
B. Steven Starr.
Who's Steven Starr?
I don't know, but apparently House Democrats they've signed a union's pledge not to dine at Star restaurants in DC over labor disputes. So that's awesome that they're, standing with labor, standing with the union. That's awesome.
Love that. You want me to get the next one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, go. Per a PA Department of Human Services estimate, around how many Pennsylvanians could lose Medicaid coverage under the federal budget proposal that passed in the U.S. House last month? Well, it's close.
We've got A,
But
30,000, B, 130,000, C, 300,000, or D, 1,300,000. I think it's C.
Yeah, it's the closest one to the one that I saw.
It was
Yeah.
more than 737,000 of Pennsylvania's over 3 million Medicaid recipients live in rural counties, and rural counties are actually at the greatest risk of cuts to hospitals and healthcare, which is, just showing that Republicans from PA are just really screwing their own constituents.
It's very stabby in the back.
Yeah. Next question, fill in the blank. State Senate Majority Leader Joe Pittman says that until courts make a decision on the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, his chamber is unlikely to act on blank bills. And the choices are A, budget, B, environmental, C, economic, or D, energy. I think B. Because regional greenhouse gas, that's environmental.
But it says it's unlikely to act on. Yeah. I'm stuck between either environmental and also energy. Let's go with it. Yeah.
Oh, you were right. It was energy.
Yeah. I had a feeling, only because just it says unlikely, so, and I don't feel like he's gonna, try to help.
Yeah, they're not very productive over in the Senate.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So we'll stop the quiz there as we're running up on time, but
this was a good one, actually.
Yeah,
I like this
it
one
was
this
great.
week.
Biggest takeaway is, always stand up and fight for someone other than yourself, fight for your neighbors, love your neighbors, all things that we're really called to do. But that'll be everything today, Pennsylvania. Thank you guys for joining us. My name is Chandler.
My name is Reinys, and we'll be back soon. Please follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, TikTok at All About PA to keep up with all things Pennsylvania. And when we drop our next episode, you can get it where you get your podcasts.
Awesome. See you guys.
Bye.